Actually, I might. I didn't grab my shoes or nothing, Jesus. All right. I think I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay. Let's hit record on the phones in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's start the show in 5, 4, 3. Hi, folks. I'm Jamie Hiles.
I'm Lydia Judy.
And Derek.
What's going on with your face?
Oh, you like it? You like it? I call it Haley's Comet.
Please comment, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, I thought you would call it the Wolverine.
I could have called it the Wolverine. I toyed with the RV goatee because it's like the reverse goatee.
That is an interesting look you have going on there.
My wife was like, "You look like a Keebler elf." I was like, she's like, "You're gonna shave that off after the show tonight, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess."
Good. So that way everybody on the internet can just see it. It's a good call.
You know.
Derek, what are you thinking?
Man, I've wanted to do this for so long, but like every time I'm like, oh yeah, I've got the beard for it now. I'm like, I don't really want to do it. So,
What's
That's
the
hilarious.
inspiration?
Nothing, just for this podcast. Like
Just
that's
for
the only
this.
reason. Yeah, because the whole time I've been planning and be like, oh man, I'm gonna call it the R. I really was actually gonna call it the RV goatee because it is the reverse of what a goatee would be.
Derek, oh
But then I
my
was like, man,
gosh.
I should just name it something cool like Haley's Comet. Might as
Why
well.
did you go with Haley's Comet of all
Because
things?
it only happens once in a lifetime.
Oh, I see. Good call.
We'll
Good
never
call.
do this
Oh
again.
my gosh, Derek.
Well,
You
I
are
mean, I've
something
had a Fu
else.
Manchu on the show. Now
I
you've
think,
had the RV goatee.
Yeah, I think it's gonna take off. Actually,
I think it's gonna. Yeah, I think it's a trend you're starting.
yeah, I could see Will Ferrell rock this.
Yeah, probably. He
Will,
could
as long
probably
as you
do
give me
it.
credit, man. I don't even care.
So, guys, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good. Had an eventful weekend. I'm not ready for it to end. I don't want to go back to work.
Yeah, nobody wants to do that. Me neither.
I had my whole life upside down.
Uh-oh.
And
Everything's
it culminated
reversed,
in this awesome beard.
That's something else. I've had a good weekend too, I suppose. Busy, getting ready for baby. He's going to be here. By the time this airs, he'll be here, but he's going to be here in a week from now. So that's exciting.
Any jitters?
Yeah, it's
Just want it
more
to happen?
just ready for it to happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, doing that. Wrote a new song. Bought the new Metallica record. It's great. So it's been a good weekend. Good weekend.
Yeah.
But guys, we're not here to talk about reverse beards, babies, in the mighty Metallica, though we should probably. We are here to talk about arachnophobia. But before we do that, I've got a shitload of horror news. So let's get into it. So, do you guys remember it was a while back, a long time ago actually, we talked about this project called The Last Voyage of the Dementor. Do you remember that? It's a Dracula story.
Yeah, vaguely, but I have seen part of the trailer.
Yeah, so the trailer is out, and it looks pretty legit. What do you think of the trailer, Derek?
I didn't watch it all. I started to watch it, and then something came up, and I wasn't able to finish it, so I haven't actually seen
The
it.
vampire looks nothing like Dracula, like you would expect, but he looks scary. You want to see him, Lydia?
Yes.
Hang on. So there's the back of him,
Mm.
and there he is.
Very bat-like, huh?
Yeah, very, very bat-like. Now, who knows if this is, just like this is the, the form that he's taken at this point. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But trailer looks pretty good. It's pretty cool idea. It's based off of the Captain's Log, the single chapter from the Stoker book. That tells the story of the Russian schooner, the Dementor, who was chartered to carry 24 unmarked wooden crates from Carpathia to London, and Dracula feeds on them. Story's kind of been told several times, most recently in the Netflix version of Dracula.
I was gonna say that was a really cool episode of that show. So
I think that was
see
the
how
best episode of the show.
Yeah. It was like, it's.
You know what the worst episode of the show was? The last one. It got fucking wild.
Yeah, it was a strange series, honestly.
It was. The first half of it was great. I was like, I'm into this.
Mm-hmm.
Then the second half happens, and I was like, kind of not into this.
Was it the same producers that did Game of Thrones? I'm just curious.
No, it's not.
Okay, because they really fucked that up. My opinion.
So that's coming out. Also, we have a title for the newest Insidious movie, which is directed by Patrick Wilson and starring Patrick Wilson. It is now called Insidious: The Red Door.
Ooh.
Nice.
And it will release on July 7th of this year.
Wonderful.
That sounds great.
The log line is Josh Lambert heads east to drop his son Dalton off at an idyllic ivy-covered university. However, Dalton's college dream becomes a nightmare when the repressed demons of his past suddenly return to haunt them both. Sounds pretty legit, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Lydia?
Yes, I'm excited.
We are fans of those. We've done the first two, right?
Yep.
Yeah, we're fans of both of those. I think we gave them both pretty high marks.
Yep.
We haven't hit any of the other ones yet, but they're fine. So, Radio Silence is directing a Universal Monster movie. So, Radio Silence is the directors of the newest Scream movies and the excellent Ready or Not. They are directing a Universal Monster movie, and it is starring Melissa Barrera, who is the lead in the new Scream movies. So we don't know much. We know that Stephen Shields wrote the script with revisions by Guy Busick, who wrote the new Scream movies as well. So what do you guys think of that?
That could be exciting.
I agree.
Any Universal Monster, we're down. I mean,
well, yeah,
on.
I mean, just
Obsessed.
well, and a lot of like horror today is like its roots are in those movies, so that'd be great. I'm sure they'll pay homage to it. If they don't, they'll.
I mean, Universal's been trying to do something with their monsters since the Dark Universe kind of imploded on itself after one movie. So I'm excited to see what this looks like. Guys, there is a Conjuring television series in the works at HBO Max.
What?
Really?
Yeah. They're developing a drama based off the film franchise. The series is set to continue the story established in the feature films.
That is amazing. Is it going to have the original cast?
We don't know
Mainly,
yet. The Warrens.
Yeah, the Warrens.
Patrick Wilson and yeah.
Yeah. If they do that, I'm 100% in. If they don't do that,
Vera Farmiga, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and mainly because what they had established in the trilogy that they've started could easily translate to a series.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's too early to tell because we don't have any casting news, but hopefully, I mean, that's the only reason to watch it is if they're in it.
Mm.
Are you guys excited for this if they are in it?
If they're in it, man, I'm on it.
I'm super excited. I'll watch pretty much any ghost movie. So, like ghost TV show. It's like, I don't even care if they're in it. I'm like, if it's spooky, I'm going to watch it.
I'm glad you said that, Lydia, because that leads me into my next bit of horror news. An independent film just got funded by Indiegogo. It is the Amityville Backpack.
Wait, what? Backpack?
The Amityville Backpack.
Okay.
The plot follows a rather hapless dude who buys a backpack at a garage sale. When people around him turn up dead, he comes to believe his new accessory may be to blame. Tracking its history, he discovers it has connections back to the small town called Amityville. What are you guys' thoughts?
Wow. I mean,
I don't
that's
know
really a stretch right there. Just be like, it's the backpack. That's the
I agree.
Yeah, that's a strange one. Maybe it's good though.
It's a no for me, dog.
I mean, it's a it is Amityville in Space was a recent one. Amityville Thanksgiving, Amityville Christmas Vacation, all these unofficial Amityville installments.
Amityville
So, hey.
Backpack. It's like the most random thing they could have come up with next.
It really is. I mean, they had the clock one. Remember that? There's one about a clock. It's About Time is what it's called. Love it. So, guys, I don't know if we talked about this. Do you remember we showed pictures of it, of the Dylan's New Nightmare, the Miko Hughes starring fan film sequel to New Nightmare. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I do remember you talking about it, yeah.
Yeah, it is now. A brand new trailer has come out, and it is scheduled to be released this summer. I mean, it's probably the only Freddy we're getting at this time, so that should be fun, right?
Well,
Yeah.
and I am hoping that they raised some money for Robert Englund to reprise his role, or he did it for free. I don't care as long as he's in it.
He is not in this. It is Dave McCrae, the filmmaker and YouTuber, is playing Freddy. He looks pretty great in it because it has great makeup effects. But, it's at least a Freddy. We haven't seen a Freddy in a while, at least a well-done one. Well, to be fair, we haven't seen a well-done, a well-made Nightmare on Elm Street movie since Wes Craven's New Nightmare. So it's like,
Yeah.
almost 30 years ago. So we'll be on the lookout for that. And then finally, I'm going to end the horror news with this piece of info. Guys, I know you're going to be sad about this, but Rob Zombie has announced that he won't be making any sequels to the House of a Thousand Corpses trilogy or a new Munsters movie.
Huh. That's weird to lump those two together.
Yeah. Well, he talked about both. But what are your guys' thoughts?
Well, I think we all know how we feel about the Monsters movie.
Yeah.
It's no bueno.
It is.
Derek,
So-
you're muted.
Dying, I just realized it too. Like 1 second before. See, I'm sad now.
You're
I
sad?
feel like, yeah, because he made such a bad movie that it ruined his career.
I haven't watched any like interviews or anything. Like, I wonder if he like knows that it's bad or like, has been like harassed about it or anything.
When he said it was a hard movie to shoot. I was reading the quote, but as I was reading it, this freaking random video started playing, and I couldn't hear you guys, and I was like, okay, I'm closing out of this link. It was like some song. I was like, what the hell is this? First of all, it sucks. I never want to hear it again. But he said it was a hard movie to shoot. You know, he tried to make that movie for 5 years. He pushed for 5 years to make that movie. And that's what he ended up doing.
I mean,
Man, I don't even like thinking about it, honestly. Bums me out just to think about it.
You know, I think that the thing that really hurts it the most is that the Wednesday series was such a hit.
You think that's what hurt it the most?
No, and then he comes out with that like absolute turd. And like because those two franchises are compared to each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
And yeah, he missed the mark big time.
Yeah, he really did.
Yeah, it wasn't his finest hour, that's for sure.
Mm.
You know how we felt about it. I think I gave it the highest rating with a 3. And Derek, I think, tried to give it negatives.
It was hard to sit through.
It was. I'm pretty sure I had to break it up into 3 sittings.
It was not the best. Let's say that. So, guys, Arachnophobia. Derek picked Arachnophobia this week.
Oh, yeah.
So, have you both seen this movie before?
Yep.
I saw this movie when I was young. So I was like, kind of like, I haven't seen it in so long. I didn't quite remember like any of it. And I think my memory was kind of skewed because I kept thinking of scenes from Eight-Legged Freaks. So, and I haven't seen that since I was young too. So I was just kind of, you know, mashing them together in my mind. So.
Yeah. So you saw it when you were a kid. Derek, you saw this when you were a kid too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, it had to be in the super early 90s. This came out in 1990. So it had to be 90, 91, 92. I've only seen this movie like maybe twice.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, it sticks with you. Like there were scenes like I remembered pretty well, pretty vividly. And so it obviously made an impression at that age. And so, but yeah, I've only seen this movie like twice. I haven't seen it.
I've seen this movie like a dozen times, probably. I've seen it a lot.
I remember it being on TV all the time.
Yeah. When I was younger, when this came out, I remember it coming out on VHS because there was like a big VHS release because it was a big movie. So I remember watching it then and, liking it a lot. And then I think my grandparents or somebody owned a copy of it because I watched it like every time I went over to, maybe it was an aunt and uncle.
Nice.
Whenever I went to their house, I watched Arachnophobia because I thought it ruled.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then I didn't see it for like 15 years, 20 years. And a while back, I just was like, you know what? I want to watch Arachnophobia. Couldn't find it streaming anywhere. So I just bought the Blu-ray. I ordered the Blu-ray. So I pop it in, once a year maybe. Because it's a fun one to revisit. It's an Amblin movie. So it has that Amblin movie feel to it, for sure. Amblin, of course, is Steven Spielberg's production company that made, E.T. and Goonies and Who Framed Roger Rabbit and pretty much all of those big hits from that era. And it feels kind of... It has a Spielberg feel to it, this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was just, at the beginning of this movie, it shows a bunch of credits and stuff like that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to read these names just because these people worked on this project. And I saw that he was an executive producer on this. And I was like, yeah, okay, there we go. I don't remember anybody else.
Well, this movie's directed by Frank Marshall, who is a producer on pretty much a ton of most very important movies like, the Indiana Jones movies and such like that. Frank Marshall is a producer on those movies. So this is his first, and I think only, directing credit. I could be wrong on that, but it's definitely his first. This was his first directing role. And it was also produced by Kathleen Kennedy, who is the head of Lucasfilm now and has produced all the Indiana Jones movies as well. So it's definitely like an Amblin style movie.
Mhm.
Where do you guys want to start? You want to start with that jungle opening? Because I think the opening of this movie is really cool. Like
Oh,
it
yeah,
really
I
sets the
agree.
stage. It kind of has that Jurassic Park flavor.
Right?
Kinda,
Where we-
yeah.
I mean, without the, Jurassic Park opens with that horrific fucking great scene, which we'll talk about Jurassic Park eventually. But it has the great raptor attack scene. But before that, or after that, we get introduced to characters doing their thing. So this is kind of similar. We're introduced to this photographer who is taking pictures of these arachnids. What do you guys think of this opening?
It's pretty cool. I'm trying to think. Yeah, it definitely has like the Jurassic Park vibes. And I just felt like because this guy is like he's a football photographer. So he's like completely out of his element. And the whole time you're just kind of like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you even here? Like, go home. Like,
And he's horribly sick with a fever
yeah.
that he
Mhm.
caught a cold while he was there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so one of the things that this movie really has going for it, other than like harnessing a fear that like a lot of people have,
Mhm.
unjustly in most cases, right? Not only that, but like there is a scenario where you could see that like this could potentially happen. It's got that realism to it, and so I love the opening and like him going into the rainforest in South
It's
America.
beautiful too. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Gorgeous, yeah, and the fact that like they're explaining, and so this was the first time we got introduced to Dr. Theodore Atherton. Atherton,
Yeah,
that
Dr.
right?
Atherton.
Yeah. Anyway, Julian Sands' character. So we got introduced to him, and he's telling him like, "Hey, we're gonna go to this like um, place that hasn't been touched in, you know, thousands of years, and so it's got like its own confined ecosystem, which
Mhm.
is super cool."
And they get that like crazy fogger out.
Yeah. What? There's no way I would stand under there.
Yeah, it seems very bad.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they dropped these giant spiders first off, let me tell you what. I'd have took
Yeah,
one look
no
at them and
bueno
been
for
like,
me.
nah, I'm good, guys. You can have my camera.
So it's great that the, like the spiders are immune to the poison. Like it doesn't
It
kill them. It knocks them out.
knocks them out.
And so the one jumps at him, and we see the size of these guys, and we see him crush one of them, and we see our main antagonist spider just watching. And I love these shots of like the spider's eyes.
Yes. Some of these shots are so cool.
Yeah.
I agree.
So I really like that. And then that he sneaks aboard, basically. He hitches a ride, the spider does. And our photographer goes to lay down because he's not feeling well. And our spider sneaks into the tent and bites him. What do you guys think of this first death?
I thought it was fairly solid. I thought the actor did a really good job of, because he's laying there and he gets bit. And then it also shows you the power of the spider bite, because he can't make a sound. I mean, goes right into shock and
Paralysis.
paralysis, and then
Yeah, he does a
very
really good
soon-
job of acting that. You're right, Derek. Like,
Yeah.
it's really scary the way he does it,
Yeah.
because and you're like, oh god, that looks like it would be a miserable way to die.
Yes, it really is terrifying to think about. Like, I mean, this type of like venom just like turns your insides to goo, basically. Like it just like liquefies you, which is terrifying.
No bueno. No bueno.
Yeah, and then when he's like, it's a great shot when we see the spider crawl into the homemade coffin they're putting him in so they can ship him back to the States.
Yeah.
And then when we see when he arrives at this town, what is the town called? Kamina?
Something along those lines. It's kind of a
Yeah.
weird name.
So when he arrives back to this small town, excuse me, arrives back in this small town, and the coroner opens up the box to because they're going to bury him. They were going to have an open casket, and he says, like he makes a face and calls the parents and says we should probably do a closed casket, and then we pan down and we see like this dried up husk of a corpse. That's great, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I love he makes a comment about he's like, oh, their preservation methods are not very good.
Yeah, well,
Little
yeah,
does
that
he
would have to be
know
the
it.
worst the absolute worst preservation methods.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a thing. People don't
You know-
decompose that fast.
Yeah, it would be really easy to make a movie like this, and they have made movies like this, and make like the main spider like overly exaggerated, ginormous like thing. I love the fact that they kept it. It's bigger than what a normal tarantula would be, but like it's
Yeah, he's definitely
still-
bigger.
He's
He's definitely
little,
bigger.
yeah. But I mean, I love that he's like he is a character in this movie, and some of the
Yeah.
shots from his perspective are just really
Dude,
cool.
When
Yeah.
he leaves the dog house or the dog door
Yeah,
and gets picked up by the bird, and the bird's flying him, and it bites the bird, and the bird nosedives at yeah.
Yes.
That's fucking great, right? Drops
Yeah.
right down by Dr. Jennings' house as they're pulling in.
yep.
Yes. And that's another thing I loved about this was like the nature aspect of it. I mean, even the very opening, you just hear the nature sounds like birds chirping and crickets and, stuff like that. And it's just very like, it's like, don't mess with nature. Like just right out the gate, don't mess with nature. And the fact that they have these shots like from these animal perspectives is really cool. Like you see the crow. Like who would even think to like shoot something like that?
Yeah,
To
it's a
be
pretty
we're
good
gonna have the
idea.
crow actually carry this like tarantula looking like, like that was all practical, which is really cool.
Yeah, what's really neat is how it lands right there, where it basically lands right for us to introduce to our main characters and our main family. Dr. Jennings, played by Jeff Daniels. What do you guys think of Jeff Daniels in this? He's fabulous, right?
He's amazing.
He is really good in it. But the last thing I want to say about this is it seems super organic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not forced. Like, this definitely these chain of events, they make sense, and I love that about it.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff Daniels, man, he rocks it in this.
He's the
He does a great
coolest.
job. I will say this. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say he comes across as and he's a doctor from San Francisco, and so he's very successful, and his wife was, I think, a stockbroker, and so there seemed to be like she got let go, she got a severance package, and there are some scenes in this where he comes across as like not as super friendly of a doctor, and maybe that's just like his like bravado he has. I'm from the big city, but it plays this character so well. There's some really great scenes in this movie.
Yeah, I like his character a lot because he's trying to fit into this small town. It's a place that he's not used to.
No,
It's the country.
And that's it. Yeah, you're exactly right, because they're from the city and they come to this small town, and right away he gets that like that small town is like trying to protect itself from these
from outsiders.
Yep.
And like he's also terrified of spiders. He has arachnophobia.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is a terrible place for him to move in this country house.
Bad
And
luck.
immediately they see a spider, and he's, we find out pretty quickly that he's terrified of him. He's like, we'll go find your mom to go take care of the spider for us.
Yep.
And they take the spider into the barn because she says it's bad luck to kill a spider in a new home. And that's very important because our big general spider has also made a home in the barn, and they mate. But while all that's going on, Dr. Jennings he's moved here because the small town doctor is retiring, and he's going to be the town doctor. So he's going to be the only doctor in town, essentially.
Mhm.
And it's going to help. He's going to make a lot of money and help a lot of people. And he gets there, and he goes to meet the other doctor, this old fucking mummified guy,
Metcalf. Yeah.
Dr. Metcalf. And he meets him, and he's like, "Oh, well, I decided not to retire now." And so he's like just screwed. He moved his whole family, uprooted his whole family to here because this guy promised him a job. And then he's like, "Oh, by the way, I decided not gonna do that." And it kind of fucks him over big time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And we also find out that Dr. Metcalf is a terrible doctor.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, he's awful. So
No,
we're
I meant,
introduced
sorry,
to...
I thought you were gonna, sorry, I thought you were going to continue. I was going to agree with you. And the reason he's bad. Go ahead. You'll get to it.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So
He's
he goes out.
Uh-huh.
So he leaves. Now he's depressed because this doctor was pretty much like, you know what? If I retire, I'm going to die. I don't want to do that. So I changed my mind. And my wife can't force me to do it, and neither can you. I'd have slapped that old man.
Thing. I know. Yeah. Such an asshole.
Yeah, it couldn't have been like, hey, I know you're going to be the town doctor. I'm not ready to retire, but like I can split the load. That way I've still got something to
send patients
do.
your way. Yeah.
Yeah, and until you decide that you're ready to do it, instead of be like, yep, you guys moved here, I'm going to screw you over. What an asshole. But anyway, so like he's leaving, and then he's getting a parking ticket.
Yes. Dude. Yes.
The sheriff.
This sheriff is
Sheriff
an
Parsons.
asshole.
He's the
Isn't he?
worst. He's the worst.
He is.
He's like
Ugh.
frustrating for no reason at all.
Yeah, he just is awful. Like
He's a
there's
bully.
really no I mean,
Yeah.
there's really no reason for him to just be as awful as he is. He just is, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so Miss Margaret Hollins, she's a school teacher. And she comes and rips up the parking ticket that he's given her, and she's like, "Oh, Lloyd has been a bully since the 5th grade." Because that's what this guy is. He's just a bully.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, new doctor, eh? It's just a school," when he finds out that he's from Yale.
Mhm.
It's just a school. And she rips it up, and she's just like, "Fuck yourself, Lloyd." And he's like, "Oh."
I think he tries to write her a ticket for littering. And she's just
He
like,
does, and then she just walks off.
I don't have time for you.
Yeah, he's. I just want to punch him in the face every time I see him.
Mm-hmm. Subsequently, she becomes the first patient.
She does. She becomes his only patient, at
Yep.
the time, because she thinks Dr. Metcalf is fucking terrible. Because he is, and he's given her unnecessary medicine for hypertension that she doesn't really have.
Mhm.
So you're finding out that he's not a very good doctor. But she decides to throw him a party. She says, "Hey, when Dr. Metcalf moved here, after the war, he threw himself a party, and everybody came in." And she's like, "If he was half as good of a doctor as he is a public relations man, then he could help people." But so she decides to throw Ross a party, and by this time, the spiders have mated, and they've spawned these hybrid super spiders, essentially, that have a very, very short lifespan, but they're terribly venomous.
Oh yeah.
And what do you guys think of this party scene? Because I think it's pretty funny. We're introduced to quite a few other characters.
Yes. I love the couple who's like eating all the cookies.
Oh, the coroner and his
the
wife.
coroner and his wife.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, they're always eating everything. I'm like, what? She's stacking her plate full of cookies, and I was like, that's me.
I like when that scene. Yeah, they're eating, and he's like, you know, talking to the doctor and being nice to him and everything, and filling him in on everything. And he's like, yeah, how does he say it? Oh yeah, he's like, yeah, this guy here, she lost because this woman was drunk, and he's like,
Mhm.
oh, they just lost their son. He was in, Venezuela for taking pictures, and he died. Horrible. Looked like all all the fluids have been drained out of him, like a vampire got him. Horrible sight. And he puts down his cookie.
Yeah.
He's like, grabs his wife. He's like,
on their
"Let's go."
plate, I think, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, he does.
I know you really want this.
And they keep doing it. They keep eating. But we're also introduced to the football coach
Yep.
Mhm.
and his family. This guy's hilarious too, the football
Yes.
coach. Because he's like the one, doing the whole like, oh yeah, this is our everybody in our family does. He's played by the great Peter Jason. But he has a daughter named Bunny, who's like teaching, like doing taekwondo on the kids. He has an older teenage daughter as well. And so we're introduced to them, and they're pretty funny too. So after everybody leaves, she goes, Miss Hollins goes back into the house, and one of the spiders is waiting for her. This is a great scene because the suspense ratchets up, and then she's saying goodbye to, telling her husband she misses her, kissing a photo of him. And
She almost got me.
Yeah. And we pan out and we see the silhouette of the spider in the lampshade.
Dude, that's after this little aggressive bastard tried to take out her cat.
Yeah.
Tried to take out her cat, and then like the narrow misses, like it's building suspense, and for something that's so small, that can be hard to do, and I think they did it really well in this scene.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just love the way it's sitting there in the lampshade, because it's there, and then she reaches up to turn off the light, and it bites her. And the next
definitely
morning,
gives you a jump too. It's like it's so unsettling and startling when it's like I didn't have a fear of spiders, and now I kind of do. Like,
Sarah watched this with me, and she did not have a good time. I mean, she thought the movie was good, but she's like, she didn't watch half of it because she's like, I'm not. I said, do you see that? She's like, I'm not watching that.
She's scared.
Yeah, that's scary and gross. So when they find her the next morning, because Ross goes over to check on her because his wife tries to call and to thank her for the party, and she doesn't answer. It keeps ringing busy. So he goes over to check on her and sees her laying, on the floor there with like stuff knocked over. And we see the doctor coming in after he had called the doctor and everything, the police. And he's like, yep, no doubt about it. Heart attack. You're like, what?
Yeah, that's a bummer.
Dude, what really pisses me off is that this guy is not her physician. He's not her physician.
Mm-hmm.
She switched to the other guy. She switched to Dr. Parsons. I mean, to Dr. Jennings. And he wants an autopsy because he knows she's healthy. He just examined her. And he's like, we're not cutting up people in this town. Blah, blah. And it's like, why would you not want to do an autopsy to see what happened?
Yeah.
And then, he threatens to sue him. He's threatened to come after his license for malpractice because he took him off. He took her off those pills that she didn't need to be on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we already know that this doctor sucks. But we really get it solidified with the next kill. because the after she dies, basically the rumors start around town that she died because of something, that he took her off the medicine and stuff. And the coach feels bad because he thinks that he's a good doctor, and he brings him to the high school to conduct physicals.
Yeah.
There was some work his way. What do you guys think of that scene?
That scene's pretty funny.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I do love like how much comedy is in this.
Yeah, it's a very funny movie. Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things that I would be questioning whether the coach liked me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's still uncomfortable. You're just, like,
But
I
hey,
don't know.
$15
Such
a
a
pop.
unique scene.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, Doc's here, kids, drop your trousers.
And Jeff Daniels like plays it off so funny. Like his facial expressions, like he just has a way of like having a blank face, but like saying so much.
Yeah, like he is kind of devastated that he's doing.
He's like, this is not how I wanted to spend my day.
Yeah. So he's just walking around, down a line of kids, and they're coughing each time. It's very funny. And so he decides to stay after, like, sit in the bleachers to do like probably charts or whatever. And while he's sitting there, we see a spider drop down into a helmet. And this one kid does a terrible play. So this has been a theme the last 2 weeks. The coach is like, you fucked up practice. Get out of here.
Yeah.
But at least this coach didn't, throw over a Gatorade table out of anger.
For no reason.
But he got the new kid in. What'd you say?
I said that is true. At least he didn't do that.
Yeah. So he grabs he tells another kid to come and puts on the helmet and gets bit and dies. And again, the doctor's like refuses to do an autopsy and saying, heart attacks. This is the 16. What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yep. And this is just him being completely stubborn.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, and just bad at being a doctor.
Yeah, and just bad in general. Because it's like, why would you, like, I don't know why you wouldn't want an autopsy if a young kid just keels over out of nowhere, And then we didn't mention this yet, but guys, this is our second movie with Happy Gilmore's grandma.
Yes.
Oh, his wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
I went, oh, like every time I see her, I'm just like, I love her.
There's Happy Gilmore's grandma.
Yes. I just love her face.
Yeah. So everybody's starting to call him Dr. Death.
Yep.
At this point.
How devastating is that?
Yeah. I don't know, I would wear it with a badge of honor.
Yeah, because you'd think you were Dr. Death Steve Williams, and you'd start wrestling people. I'm Dr. Death.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
But the funny part is the kids, are like, people are saying that you're wanting to cut people up.
In tiny pieces.
Like, no, that's not a thing. So he's really wanting to get, figure this out. He's wanting to figure out what's going on because he's taken these deaths hard. He took her death really hard because she was his patient, and he knew she was healthy.
And the only person that has showed him any kindness in this town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she just dies, So around this time, we're introduced to one of my favorite characters ever, which is John Goodman's Delbert.
Oh my gosh.
When he comes over to check the floor. What do you guys think of Delbert?
Delbert is off the walls.
He's so good. He is
so good. There's a scene with him and Julian Sands later that is just like, it's priceless.
Dude, all of his scenes, but this
All of
one,
them.
my favorite bit when he comes in and she's like, yeah, he said something about might be termites, and she's like, yeah, that's what my husband thinks. He goes, oh, is he an expert in this field? And she's like, no, he's a doctor. He's like, oh, well, no room for amateurs around here.
So funny.
She goes, when she says, he's like, no termites, bad wood. Well, what do I do? Tear out bad wood, put in good wood.
Yes.
He said, would you mind if I tore up this floor? Or would anybody mind if I tore up this floor? Yeah, I would mind. All right. No, not a big deal.
Never mind. Never mind that. Ignore that.
So he's great. So we're introduced to him at this point. And he's also got this great theme music when he pulls up every time.
He does. He's like a little superhero.
He is, and he's the thing I remembered the most of this when I was a kid.
Me
Like,
too.
Yeah.
he's everybody, like when you're a kid, he's your favorite for sure.
Yeah.
And
he's so
like
cartoonish.
he is like a Ghostbuster almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you remember, if you wind back the clock to last week when I recommended this, I started off with a John Goodman movie. Jeff
Yeah.
Daniels is in it too.
Yeah. And John Goodman's like in 4 scenes.
He is only in
steals
4
them.
scenes, yeah.
He steals them. So the doctor is the next to bite the dust. What do you guys think of his death scene?
Go ahead, Lydia, if you got it.
Oh man, this is a good one because this is when it starts getting real. And now we have a witness to this spider attack, And why is he walking on a treadmill in his bedroom?
Well, I mean,
That's just what he's doing.
Working
out.
If I had a treadmill, I'd put it in the basement, but to each their
He's
own.
walking like less than 1 mile an hour. He's just like, I need to know exactly how long I walked and how far.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? And his beautiful, cute, sweet little wife is in this cute little bed that looks like the coziest, softest bed in the world. It's this yellow little frilly comforter. And I was like, go be with her. Get off this stupid treadmill.
No, don't. He's terrible.
Yeah.
For all the crap that he gets, and rightfully so, he's kind of the key to breaking this thing open.
Well, he is. He's with his death because he's terrible.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, he saw a spider run away, and he says, "Oh, I think it might be a spider bite. Call the doctor," as he's keeling over.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I love the suspense of it because we see it on the treadmill, and then it slides off.
It's a great little scene.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it goes into his slippers, and he was about to walk without the slippers, and she's like, the floor is cold. He's like, you're right.
You're always right.
So he puts on the slipper and it bites him. So he, Dr. Jennings shows up and says, we need an autopsy. She said that there's a spider bite. I don't know what's going on. I don't know anything about this yet. This is where it gets very Jawsian. It's like, I don't know. I'm not an expert on this. I know nothing about it, but there's something going on. So he orders them to exhume the other 2 bodies because he needs to be sure. Because he sees the spider bite. The medical examiner doesn't quite believe him at first. He's like, well, due to toxicology. And when he gets the toxicology back, he basically, there's a shitload of venom in his body. And he can't explain
venom.
it. Yeah, and he's like, I guess it could be a spider bite, so we need to figure this out. So they exhume the bodies. He goes to Lloyd to exhume the bodies, and Lloyd's being a fucking prick, like always.
Yeah.
He's just like refusing. He's like, I'll get a court order if I have to.
Yep.
The medical examiner's on my side. So just do it. You bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely goes in there and shows his authority. Also, around this time, this is where he finds Dr. Hoobadahoo, Julian Sands character. He's going through like some
Abernathy. I think is what it was, right?
Yeah,
Atherton.
Atherton. I was so close.
Yeah.
And he like circles his name like I need to call this guy. He might be able to help.
Yeah, and I mean he takes over the practice at this point, and he's getting all these patients, and his wife had taken pictures of the web, so she sees the web in the barn and snaps some pictures of him, and we get this great scene where she has him face his fears to go see this web, and this freaking dead rat wrapped in a web falls at his face. He's like, nope, to hell with that.
Yeah.
Man, do you know what my the next scene would be if I were him? It would be me setting that stupid barn on fire, let me tell you. I'd be like, nope.
Yeah, so he calls Dr. Atherton, who sends his assistant to go check it out, Chris. And so he's...
Real quick, they're in San Francisco, right? The doctor.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I think that's where they said they were. So he has a specimen in his office.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the ones that they returned back from South America, and he's feeding it. And I love how he first off plucks the string, to let the spider know there's something in its web. As he's talking to him, I'm pretty sure that's one of the specimens. Because I got a theory, and we can come back to it later.
Okay. So yeah, he sends Collins, Chris Collins, to go. So the bodies have been exhumed, and they find spider bites on all three of them. And because he's like, well, a Black Widow would take a lot of bites to kill the guy. And he's like, probably just a coincidence. He's like, well, what about this one and this one? You still think it's a coincidence? And he's like, hey, boss, we got a problem here. There really might be something to this.
Yep.
So they all head over to her house, Miss Holland's house, to see if they can find a spider. They need a live specimen. And while they're there, they found... So first of all, they all split up, and damn Lloyd just sits in the kitchen eating cereal out of a box.
Yeah.
But luckily he did, because he finds a specimen. I mean, it's a dead one. But he finds a dead spider, which is important because we see that their lifespan's not very long.
Mm-hmm.
Dude,
so he finds a dead one.
Forcing myself to throw up.
Yeah. And then he finds a dead one, and then Chris finds a live one behind a picture frame. And I love this scene with the spider on the table. And, Jennings is frozen.
Yes. This is a great scene.
And he grabs the glass, and he's like, Dr. Jennings, I'm going to need you to take a step forward for me. And he's like, I can't move. He's like, yeah. And he talks about how, there's evolutionarily, we have something in our brains that equip us to take that step. He's like, you're going to be fine. So he takes the step forward. The spider moves towards him, and he taps it.
This scene played out to me like two gunslingers.
Yeah, the tension.
Stand down. Yeah, because that spider was this is where that aggressive nature comes from. He would move, he would move. It just felt like there was a standoff between the two until Jennings intervened.
And you see how
Jennings didn't
truly
intervene.
scared.
He
truly scared.
Collins intervened.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. And say, trapped him. And that's when Atherton, that's when Dr. Atherton comes. That's when he's like, we got one. We need you to get here. And he's like, I can be there.
Yeah, that's because they dissect it and they're like, oh my gosh, this little spider has glands that are massive, and did they take a sample, or they waited for the doctor to get here?
Yeah.
I got ahead of myself.
Yeah, so they're like, this is something we haven't seen, so they call him in. And meanwhile, there's a couple of great scenes. There's a scene where the daughter is staying the night with the coach's daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing the itsy bitsy spider. It's a
Love
great
this
scene.
Yeah.
One of the very best. And the spiders coming down as they're doing it. They're scaring each other with the spiders.
Mm-hmm.
And then it like almost catches one of them. They're completely oblivious to it. And they crush it with the book. Classic.
Yep.
And then we get the scene with the daughter in the shower.
It's hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
This is great. So
This
scary because
scene.
that'd be horrifying. But yeah, she's taking a shower and the spider is like, you see it crawling on the freaking shower rod, and then it gets up on the shower head
on her.
Yeah, it goes down her body. We see it like going down her body.
Goes across her face.
Yeah.
I'm like screaming at this point. Like, no.
Did anybody else smack their face because they felt a little
Like,
tickle and they're like, "A spider!"
I feel it there.
And then at the same time, her dad is going to take a dump, and there's a spider right in the toilet.
Yeah,
But
this
luckily,
is the
she
hilarious
screams, and he stands up so he doesn't get his ass bitten. And he runs in, and she's standing there topless, and she's like, and then he's like, oh, doesn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So you could say that she kind of saved his ass.
She did, literally. Yeah, she did. So, of course, they do what any normal person would do. They call in Delbert to come and check out this spider situation.
Yep.
And, you know, he has this great freaking dialogue with Peter Jason. It's really funny. He's like talking all of his stuff, and he's like, there's no spider here. It's like, just misses it. And then he's walking out. He's like, I'll find the alleged arachnid. And he sees it on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
So he squirts it, and it doesn't do anything. It stands back up. So he squirts it again, and it stands back up again. So he goes over and just squashes it with his foot. And then he says, that's right. The dog looks at the dog. I'm bad. But that's important because it shows that their intolerance to the poison. So he has to get his special stash that he was talking about.
Personal stash, yeah.
Yeah, that he was talking about. So that way he can fight him off later. So the doctor's here. He comes and looks at him, and that's when he realizes that it is because he's like, I know why this name sounds familiar to you. This town sounds familiar to you. It's because this guy, the photographer, was from here. And he's like, oh my God. And he's like, this is a descendant of this spider. And they break it down essentially. They're like, these are general, like these are soldiers, spiders. There's a general, there's a queen, and there's an egg sac somewhere. So we have to find the nest because these ones die. So that's the good thing. But the next ones won't. The next ones are going to be genetically modified with the queen and the king instead of the house spider. So the clock is ticking to find this nest.
Yeah, because at this point, like, these spiders have one very unique evolutionary trait. They are born without reproductive organs, so they can't spawn on their own.
Reproduce, yeah.
Yeah, it's up to the other two. And he says, it won't be too long before a batch has more queens.
Yeah, this next batch will, yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll mate, and they also will have a longer lifespan.
Well, and this is
So
also where we learn the stakes. Like with the venom of these spiders is so potent that he pretty much says like, "Hey, if we don't do this, like we're all going to be in a lot of trouble
yeah,
because
this
there's going to
town's
be
done.
yeah,
And the next
in the
town,
next
and the next
town, and the
town.
next town, yeah."
And
That's crazy to think. You know what I mean? Like when you put it in those types of that perspective, that something that small could cause that much damage. That's crazy.
yeah, so Delbert comes because he had seen one of these spiders.
This is the scene, by the way.
And yeah, so go ahead and talk about it.
So he comes in and he's like, "Oh, I introducing himself," and he shakes the doctor's hands and he tells him who he is. He's like, "Oh, it's always nice to meet a colleague."
Yeah.
Like, dude, you're not in the realm of this guy. What are you talking about, a colleague? You're an exterminator. That cracked me up, man.
There's another line that I forgot to mention that really makes me laugh. When he's looking at when he's going through the cellar and he sees the wine and he says,
Oh my gosh.
he's like,
Oh,
yeah, he's like, I collect vintage beer cans myself. Got a 75 with mislabeled. There's only 100 in circulation. Maybe the husband wants to take a gander.
Yeah, as he shakes one of the wine bottles.
So stupid. I love it. So at this point, everybody, this is where we get in our third act. They're trying to get a hold of the coroner because they think that obviously it would make sense that the coroner's office is where the nest would be because that's ground zero. It's where he was brought in. So they're trying to call the coroner to get a hold of him. And the doctor and the deputy, Lloyd, are at the office. And he sees the picture of the spider web. And he's like, oh my God, I need to go here. I need to go here. Take me there now. So he takes him there. Guys, what do you think about the coroner's death? The coroner and his wife.
A+.
Oh my gosh.
This
it's
is
so
great
good.
because it literally plays into the traits that these people have had. And the reason why, by the way, I love these little character beats that they give these guys. So he and his wife, every night for Wheel of Fortune, they take the phone off the hook because, yeah, that's a very normal thing to do so that they can concentrate. And the next
was in the late 80s, I guess.
I guess. And so, like, they it shows them making their popcorn and getting ready for the big game. The big Wheel of Fortune game.
Yes.
Let me tell you what, that's my kryptonite, by the way. In case anybody doesn't follow the podcast, I would not do well on that game show.
Oh yeah. Guys, I had such a wave of nostalgia when I heard that Wheel of Fortune playing on that TV. And it really sent me. Yeah, I mean, but like I haven't watched it since I was young, like at my grandma's,
Yeah,
so, like,
you watch Wheel of Fortune during the day when you're sick. And
Yes.
you're at your grandparents.
Yes.
You watch that and you watch The Price is Right. That's what you did.
No. I'm so old that whenever those days occurred, like we would be watching. Man, I forget. I just remember No Whammy.
Yes,
Oh, yeah,
I love
yeah.
that one.
Devlins, like the old school game shows.
I watched that one during the day, but Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy would come on at night. And I would watch it before my dad would take me home to my mom's because I was, back and forth to my grandma's and mom's my whole childhood. So it was like that. I was like either have popcorn or M&Ms or like a little snack, and we would just sit there and watch it together. And man, it really got me. I loved it.
You know what I used to watch? Something that I used to watch during. We'll get back to this in a second, but when I was home from school, you know what it was? Fucking Matlock.
Oh gosh.
Matlock.
I remember those, yeah.
Matlock was on all the time. Down. Wow. Yeah, Andy Griffiths.
Yeah,
And
Matlock.
then also In the Heat of the Night was on all the time too. The Carol O'Connor TV series.
Ah, those were so good. Dude, do you remember Father Downing?
Yeah. Yes.
I forget what it was called.
It was Tom Bosley, right?
Yeah.
From Happy Days. Yeah.
Yep, it was him.
Yeah, I
And
remember
then
that shit,
She
man.
Wrote.
Murder, She Wrote.
Lindsay and I started watching Murder, She Wrote, by the way.
I'm
like
Sarah and I started watching Columbo.
There you go, Peter Falk.
Dude, Columbo's the best. I know this is a tangent. Columbo's the best. We just watched Poker Face. It's phenomenal. And it made me want to go back and watch Columbo. So we've watched like 4 episodes of classic Columbo, and it's just the best.
All right, I know we're going to get back to this, but I got to ask, have you guys ever seen a movie with Peter Falk, Cyndi Lauper, and Jeff Goldblum?
I don't know. That doesn't sound familiar.
Cyndi Lauper is a psychic, and Peter Falk is a detective, or he's like a con guy.
Never seen that. Never.
It's kind of like
excellent.
romancing the stone, but it's got
sounds
those
excellent.
characters.
We'll have to check that one out.
It's fun. It's a fun movie.
So back to this. This death. So we see him grab like a handful of a spider.
Mm-hmm.
And then we don't see him until Jennings, Collins, and Delbert arrive at the at his house. And the door's open. They knock. He doesn't answer. They open the door, and this freaking spider crawls out from his nose.
Yes. He's
Mm.
like
What do you
clearly
guys
a
think?
dummy at this
Nah.
point, but
Well, of course, yeah.
Yeah. It's not a terrible dummy. It's not the worst dummy I've ever seen.
No,
it's
it probably looked a lot
100% is.
better. Probably looked a lot better not in HD. But
right,
yeah,
yeah.
it still looks good. Still looks good.
It looks fine. It looks fine. I just had to say it. I had to
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
it.
For sure.
But it's so creepy, right? Just can you
Yes.
imagine? And you're just
Yeah.
like, and you
I
know
think-
these are terribly venomous.
Yes. And I think that's really like part of the excitement of this movie is that they're clearly real spiders.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, how freaky is that? That somebody had to wrangle all these spiders.
Wrangle these spiders and put them on there. Yeah.
Which of course I had to look up what kind of spider this was. And
Yeah.
it's called
it a
a
spider?
Avondale spider, and they're from New Zealand, and they're harmless and docile, so they're probably
Yeah, that's
very
why they
easy
use
to
them.
control. But they look
Yeah.
totally gross.
Yeah. So at this time, the doctor and Lloyd arrive at the barn, and he sends Lloyd to go get them, to go to the coroner's office to get them and tell them to meet him here.
Mm-hmm.
We never see Lloyd again, by the way. I don't know if they cut his death or if he just is gone. We never see him again after this point. But Julian Sand's character goes up, and here's where you wanted to talk about, Derek.
This is the only scene that doesn't make any sense in this movie. Because you've got the guy who knows the most about these spiders. And he goes into this barn by himself and climbs up there and literally announces dinner's here and rings the dinner bell. Essentially, that's what he did.
Yeah.
And then he gets attacked by the biggest spider on this earth.
Well, at that point, yeah.
Yeah, and but yeah, that part is the only thing that kind of struck me, that he was just so, you know what, I'm gonna go take a look at this thing in this dark barn. I don't know where it's
I
at.
think he was just overconfident because he's very
100% he was
very full of himself. Yeah,
he is, but that's a big mistake to make.
big mistake for sure. So he thought he could do it. So he goes in there, does his thing that we've already seen do before. So he's thinking, I've got this. And then it freaking just jumps in and bites him. And we do a great shot where we just see the outside of the barn and we see the flashlight just fall.
Yep,
It's great stuff.
it was.
So they figure out, hey, Well, Chris does. He says, "Hey, I need a map of this town," and he's like, "Let's map out where the deaths occurred." It's like here, 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 and he makes a circle, and he's like, "What's this property in the middle? That's the coroner's office, right?" And he's like, "No, that's my house." And so they beeline towards there. And there's a funny Delbert exchange in this bit too, when they're driving. And he's like, it's the whole damn time it's in my barn. He's like, probably unlikely this in your barn, Doc. Arachnids are like us, they don't really like barns are too windy and dusty. They would rather be somewhere nice and moist and cold. And he's like, well, I know it's there because I saw the web. A web would what is it? A web would indicate the presence of an arachnid.
Yeah. And I have never been in a barn that didn't have spider webs everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. So
maybe he meant like that time of year or something.
Yeah, that's what he meant. And so Delbert goes into the barn to check it while Chris and Dr. Jennings go in to save his family. And this is where the shit just cranks up to 11 because he finds Julian Sands covered in spiders falling down on him. Delbert does. And the house starts getting taken over by spiders. Legit taken over by spiders.
Crazy.
So real quick, at the end of this, I'm going to tell you two stories, and I want you to remind me of the foot and the house.
Okay.
The foot and the house.
Do. So I love that they're watching Family Ties, by the way.
Yeah.
That also took me all the way back.
Yeah.
I was like, fucking Family Ties. See old Michael J. Fox. And dude, there's just no way I would never be able to sleep again in my entire life.
Yeah, me neither.
Just the whole house. They just start coming out of everywhere. And one bite from these guys will kill you. And so they lock themselves up in the upstairs bathroom because they can go out the window. And the scariest shot to me in this movie is when they're in there and the spiders start coming from under the door, and they use the towel to hold it off, and then it pushes through the doorknob and knocks the doorknob off. That's terrifying to me. I'm like, no. Just imagine it's like a sea of spiders.
You really feel trapped in that moment for him.
No way.
You're like, there's no way out. There's no way.
And so Ross can't escape with the rest of them. Everybody else gets down. Chris falls off because the thing falls. But they're all outside and safe. And it looks like they're about to be the spiders are coming after him. And then this is where it happens, Derek. The superhero shot. The truck lights come on. And then Delbert steps forward with his tanks on and his hat on and his mask. And he starts taking out spiders with his fucking special stash.
At this point, when I saw that scene, I looked at Jake and I said, I feel like Derek would play this character really well.
Thank you, Lydia. That means a lot.
Yeah, he's just your personality is kind of like your sense of humor, your funny sense of humor, and then you're just he's just so dedicated.
He's dedicated to being the world's best exterminator. Yes. It's so funny.
He's very passionate.
This was when I was a kid. I loved this. This is the scene I loved the most. I was like, yeah.
What did he say? What that spray was? Because he was sizzling stuff with that.
It's sizzling these spiders. Yeah,
it has got to be some sort of nasty acid.
Yeah.
Well, he said that it's biodegradable, and he says it earlier in the movie. It's I've got this combination. It's biodegradable, environmentally friendly, and not toxic to humans on the skin, but something about destroys the arachnids or whatever. And it does. It fucking destroys him pretty good. So he shows up and starts just shooting all these spiders and, saves the family. Meanwhile, Dr. Jennings falls through the rotted floor.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I like freaked out when that he fell through the floor.
And then he falls through the floor and he realizes that he's in the nest because there's no spiders around.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees the queen.
Yes. I really like how, I figured it out because of the cricket. He found the cricket in his house, and I was like, they're not in here because that cricket would not be here, Yeah. It's clearly his house. That's the...
Yeah.
I love that.
And
there's a lot of, foreshadowing that goes on.
There
with
is
the lock on the cellar door.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's trapped. He can't get out. He has to he fights what do you guys think? He basically has 2 boss fights with these spiders.
Yeah.
Literally.
He electrocutes the queen.
Yep.
And says, therapy.
Therapy. Yeah. Great. Hits her with the shovel. And the battle with the general is really good and really scary, right?
Well, and he just kind of fucking comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does.
That's a great jump scene, but I feel like him wrestling with the spider went on just slightly too long where I just kind of started laughing.
It's supposed to be kind of funny, so it works.
Yeah.
Well, in the scene where he's he's trapped and he's chucking bottles of his wine, trying to deter the spider, and he grabs one and he's like, nope, not that one. I'm not gonna do that.
That's cracking me up.
Yeah. Not that one. And then he's chucking, dude. It's great because he gets the flame, and he's freaking, trying to catch it. And he sprays it when it's in the water spout, and he says the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, and then he is trying to spray it and everything, and he catches the stuff on fire, and it ends up getting him, and he falls down and he's trapped, and the spider is crawling up him, and it's just so scary.
And he's frozen like when he was a baby.
Yep, just like when he was a baby. And it crawls up and it walks onto that piece of wood.
Yep.
Yes.
And he freaking
launches
tots it off, boom, into the fire.
That was so good. I did not see that coming.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Into the fire, and then
did you say like Dawkins?
Yeah, I did. I said like Dawkins. And then he sees the freaking the nest start to open, and he's like, "Oh, great!" So he's trying to get his stuff ready, and that freaking spider jumps out on fire after him.
Yeah,
and it leaps at him, and he shoots it with the nail gun, and it hits the nest and explodes it as well. And he says, "Great shot." And then we get a jump scare as Delbert reaches up and grabs him, and he's like, "You're welcome."
Yeah.
Yeah. He says, "Thank God," and he's like, "Don't thank me," or something like that.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
He just walks up, and then
total Derek move right there. Total Derek move.
Then we get a nice little coda to this movie. They moved back to San Francisco.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
They got the hell out of Dodge.
Yeah. So what do you guys think of that third act?
It's really good.
It is good.
It's a lot of fun.
It's very entertaining.
Yeah, it keeps ratcheting up the fucking shit that happens.
Yeah.
So I think I agree. I think it's great.
Never a dull moment.
And I think
and he says, he's like, well, the spiders are gone, basically they're dying off. The ones they're dying off, and the other ones, Delbert pretty much killed all of them. Because of course he did. He has that fucking crazy acid. But yeah, the coda in in San Francisco is really funny because they feel a little tremor, a little earthquake, and he's like, oh, that's just a that probably wouldn't even register in that little machine thing. She's like, the Richter scale. Yeah, yeah. It's no big deal. Let's go check on the kids. And then a giant earthquake happens, knocks over their wine. And it's like, these guys can't catch a break.
Oh my gosh. I was like, what? What is happening? You're just
Poor
gonna
guys.
end the movie with an earthquake. Like, what is going on? That was good. Jake looked at me and kind of was like, because you can't control,
Nature.
you can't control nature. You can't control your life the way you think you can. I was like, oh, you're so right. That's so devastating.
Yep.
So
It's a fun little cute little coda.
It is, and so this would have been an awesome opportunity if they would have made a sequel. And the reason why is that professor or that doctor had a specimen in his office. And if I am right, and I totally could be wrong, if it were in San Francisco, there's a decent chance that that glass enclosure could have broke during this earthquake and then set off the events.
I like that theory. Is there a second movie?
I don't think
No.
so. I don't think they ever made it a sequel.
They did not. It was a huge hit, but
They
a
definitely
pretty sizable
could've,
hit.
With that theory right there, would have absolutely made sense.
But they are remaking it. Remember, we talked about this.
Yeah.
yeah,
They
So
are
it probably-
remaking it.
it probably won't
with,
have anything to do with that. Like,
Yeah, well, it's produced by James
earthquake.
Wan,
nice.
executive produced by Frank Marshall, the original producer, and it's written and directed by Christopher Landon. So it's just been announced, so we don't have a shooting date or anything for that. But at least we're getting something new out of it. That's cool, I guess.
They got some big shoes to fill.
They do. Guys, what do you think of Arachnophobia? Lydia, what are your thoughts?
I really liked it. I think this movie is pretty solid and it's extremely entertaining. I had a great time watching it with Jake during dinner, and I mean, it's just like, that's a good family movie right there,
Mhm.
I really liked, the acting, the close-ups of the spider, like him being a character was really good. Him or her, whoever it is. But when you see like the flames in the spider's eyes, I was like, dang, this is a good movie. And
Yeah, it's great.
just perspectives and ideas that you get from this it's just really good. I like it. And it's funny. Like, it's genuinely funny to me. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had that I wanted to say about it, but I don't know what to rate it because I like, me, I like hand out 10s left and right. So, but I'm like, I really don't have any complaints about this movie. So, but it's not on like the level of like some of the other movies we've given 10s. So I mean, maybe I'll just give it a 9 just to be safe. I think it's a solid family movie.
Yeah, I agree. Derek.
So this movie is pretty solid across the board. I think the tricky thing with a movie like this, when it's about spiders, is one, making it make sense. I think this movie makes sense in so many ways. Two is you gotta have chemistry. This movie has a ton of chemistry in its cast. It's got chemistry in the way that they portrayed it as it's got a lot of horror elements, but it's also got a lot of humor in it, and it meshes super well together.
Yeah.
It plays
several times. I gasped like multiple times.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like a big family thriller. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you think of a movie like Eight-Legged Freaks, and I mean, it was a different movie. It was about like mutated spiders, but like, this movie just it hit all the numbers. And the one thing I think it has going for it is that it hits on a primal fear that so many people have. I can't tell you how many spiders I've had to dispose of for my wife because she freaks out. Right. And there are so many people who have that fear.
Oh, yeah.
So not that they needed a reason to be killed, but watch this movie and you'll have just one more. So I'm gonna give this movie an 8.5 because to me it rocks. It's good.
Yeah, that's a good way to summarize this movie. It rocks. Because
Yeah.
it does. It's a really fun movie. That's why I've seen it so many times. Like I said, like a dozen times. This is a good one to revisit. As a kid, I loved it. As an adult, I love it. I think it's really good. The performances are great across the board. The direction's great. It's just a fun movie to watch. Like, I don't know how you couldn't have a good time watching this movie. So I am also going to give it a 9, Lydia. It's a great movie.
Nice.
Arachnophobia for the win. Derek, before we tell your stories about house and feet, it's time to aconize arachnophobia.
Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me. Thrill me.
Detective, thrill me.
Who would Tom Atkins play in this?
Oh. Ooh.
I got a good one that he could play and not disrupt the chemistry of anybody else.
Okay.
He'd be a really great coroner.
I was going to
Yeah.
say the football coach.
Football coach too. Yeah, he'd be a hell of a football coach too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I say
What guy
football
created passes, babe?
Yeah.
What guy created passes?
So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we're in the football coach. Yeah,
That's a good one.
that's the way to go. Because he lives, so he could be in the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
That would definitely be made if Tom Atkins was in it. So yeah, that's a good pick. Derek, you had some stories.
Okay. So, Jamie, you said that like these spiders coming out through the walls and stuff like that, right? Would really freak you out. This is a true
In
story.
real life, it'd be terrifying. Yeah.
There was a house that was condemned because it was infested with brown recluse spiders.
Ooh.
I forget where it was, but they literally had to condemn the house because it was completely infested with brown recluse spiders. Like, you couldn't live in that house, man. Brown recluse spiders are nasty little spiders.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty bad.
And it leads into the second one about the shoe. So I was once delivering pizza to this guy. I think it was a trailer. It was somewhere close to Peru, and like he answered the door, and I happened to look down, and he had like a really messed up foot, and I don't know how I approached the subject, but we started talking. He had put his foot in a shoe, in a boot, and it had a brown recluse spider in it, and it bit his toes like a couple of times. Either way, he like lost half of his foot
Oh my gosh.
because he put his shoe in the brown recluse spider bit him a couple of times on his toes.
Yep.
Nah.
My neighbor has like a big like hole in his leg. My neighbor and my mom, out in the country, he's a farmer, and he's got like a big hole in his leg because he got bit by a brown recluse, and it just eats away at your flesh.
Mm-hmm.
It's really scary stuff.
Yeah. Derek, how did you approach this foot guy?
Dude, I don't know, but that's the second person that I delivered a pizza to that had some sort of extremity that was not correct. So once I delivered a pizza to a guy, and he was on crutches, and he was like, "Oh yeah, go ahead and bring it in and set it on this table." And I wasn't really paying attention, and so I brought his pizzas in, I set them down on the table, and I turned around, and I was like, "Oh, what happened to your leg?" And I looked down, and it was gone. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how could I forget what he told me, like what happened, but I was like, I cannot believe that I walked right into that. Which, by the way, I've got a knack for doing.
Yeah, he hopped right into it.
He did. He didn't walk. He hopped.
Wow.
No, did you ask that guy if his shoe size was, like 10 and a half?
That's messed up.
Nope,
That is
I did
messed
not.
up.
Missed opportunity right there.
It was.
We should write that into a movie one time and make it a joke.
Oh man, that's messed up. Remember what was the joke that we laughed at for 10 minutes, you and I, and Lydia just sat there like horrified.
She was like, "You guys, I'm done with this."
Oh man.
I don't know. There was the Sonny Bono one that got us pretty good.
Oh my gosh.
That was not a good one. Yeah. So guys, it is
I do remember,
my
but I'm not
turn.
going to bring it up.
Thank you.
We'll talk off mic. It's my turn to pick. And I've been thinking about it. Thinking about it hard. And I think we're going to do Lydia, this is because of you, is why we're doing this.
Uh-oh.
Last weekend when we were hanging out and we were at the record store, you mentioned a movie that you said you never seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek, you probably haven't seen this in a long time. So we're going to do a lesser John Carpenter classic. We're going to do John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
Nice.
So
It's got Val Kilmer in it?
no, that's what the hell? That's Red Planet.
Red Planet, yeah.
Yeah. No, Ghosts of Mars has Ice Cube,
Yeah.
Natasha Hendricks,
Yeah.
Jason Statham.
Oh, I forgot he was in that movie.
Yeah.
He's gotta
Pam
be pretty
Grier.
young.
Pam Grier is also in it.
Wow. Okay.
So we'll be doing John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars next week.
Nice. I just saw that pop up on something too. That's so funny. I know we just saw the record at the.
Yeah, we just saw the record at the record store. So, guys, that is this week's episode. Be sure to comment down below on your spider stories. Give us some spider stories if you have any. Tell us what movies you want us to do next. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow us online. You can follow us at HiLaProductions.com. You can follow us on Facebook at HiLa Productions. You can follow us each on Twitter. You can follow Lydia at Lydia Spooky. Follow Derek at DDoglyMaster. You can follow me at Racket. So be sure to tune in next week for John Carpenter's Ghosts of Mars.
Real quick, I think we should take a poll on if I should bring this back sometime in the future. My RV goatee.
The RV goatee.
It rolls off the tongue. I mean, if you think about it.
It does roll off the tongue.
You can
So
chant it at a
comment
baseball
down
game.
below on your thoughts for the RV goatee. Until next time, for Derek Lemaster and Lydia Judy, I'm Jamie Hiles. Remember, if you're going to scream bloody movies.